Hey everyone, this is Chris from Cables to Clouds. We just wanted to start out this episode with a bit of a heavy heart and say that we're dedicating this particular episode to the friends and family of Nick Russo, who recently passed away last week. Nick was an absolute legend, such a big contributor to the networking community. One of the most gifted and kind people that we all knew. So if you want to make a donation in his name, we will put some links into the show notes where you can have a look and do that. So without that, we will get into the episode.
Welcome to the Cables to Clouds podcast, your one-stop shop for all things hybrid and multi-cloud networking. Now, here are your hosts, Tim, Chris, and Alex.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your fortnightly Cables to Clouds news episode. I am Alex Perkins. I will be your host this week. I'm at Bumps in the Wire on socials, joined as always by my two co-hosts, Tim McConaughey, who is at Juan Golbez, and Chris Miles, who is at BGP Main. Hopefully this episode won't be too long. We got some juicy news. There's been a couple conferences recently. So let's dive right in. Tim, you want to kick us off with some AWS news?
First story is from the AWS blog, and it's a expansion or a new capability for AWS CloudWan. So if you remember last year we had Ruskin from AWS on our Cloud Demystified series. He talked with us about CloudWan and kind of all the stuff you could do with CloudWan at that time. They just added a new capability to it, which is what they're calling their service insertion feature. So this is very much like the TGW service insertion, basically, where you can, redirect traffic as it moves across the TGW into some kind of security stack for inspection, whether it be AWS Firewall or Palo or some third party or Aviatrix. And the so this is a new capability. It's different in CloudWan than it is, say, for example, with the TGW service inspection VPC, because of course CloudWan is a managed service. So since you don't directly control, like, say, the TGWs under the hood for CloudWan, they've introduced this new feature where you can use a policy essentially to tell CloudWan to redirect traffic to your security stack, whatever it is. And then, based on how that security stack inspects it, it can go north-south, it can go internet egress or east-west. But pretty cool naked capability. A lot of third-party vendors, ourselves included, have included some blog posts and whatnot to show people how to build that in and include security inspection.
I'm still waiting on direct connect attachments. When is that coming?
You and everybody else. Yeah, this is cool to see them add this. Obviously, this has been a capability that TGW has had for a while now. Maybe not in an orchestrated manner, but you could at least get it done from a technology like a routing perspective, right? So I'm sure this is probably huge for a lot of customers moving to adopt CloudWan from TGW. They probably were like, "Oh, I'm not moving to CloudWan until you have this capability." So this is probably really big for those wanting to make that migration. Have you had any conversations around that, Tim? Has that been something that you guys were privy to?
Like with customers, you mean? Or
yeah.
So, I haven't spoken with any customers that I have that were waiting for that capability in CloudWan to move to it. But I know that it was, wanted almost as much as, say, direct connect connectivity to CloudWan. So CloudWan is still pretty much in its infancy, right? Like it provides kind of the east-west connectivity across regions and all of that. With the policy and the segmentation, but it's still very, I don't know, I hesitate to say clunky. That sounds negative, but it's just, there's just not a lot there. It's like an abstraction of an abstraction right now. So this is getting closer to kind of what I would consider to be a fully functional kind of network capability.
Yeah, I've noticed that they've added these kind of, which it does get relatively complicated once you start peeling back the layers of the onion. But they brought in this concept of send to versus send via. So it's like,
That's right.
you're sending your north south traffic to maybe one security set, and then the east west to another, right? So yeah, it's I'd be curious to see this in the wild. I'd like to see some people using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wrote a blog for Aviatrix on how we integrate with it, but it's the same as if, I pick a third party, pick a Palo, whatever. The integration is from the CloudWan side. So
Yeah.
any kind of third party integration would look the same. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a policy, and you make these actions that basically do like policy based routing, essentially, that tell it, hey, when you go across this CloudWan segment, if this says send via or send to north, south, or east, west, go to this security inspection thing, that target that we've made for you. So it's pretty cool. Again, it's an abstraction of an abstraction, so it still feels a little Fisher Price, but it's a pretty cool thing that I hope a lot of people are going to try out. Okay, next story from aboutamazon.com is some stuff that came out of Reinforce, I believe. I think this came from Reinforce. AWS is debuting some new AI certifications. Surprise, surprise. In its quest to become a leader in AI. We now have the AWS Certified AI Practitioner, I think it is. Hang on. Yep, that's right. AWS Certified AI Practitioner. So think of like, Certified Cloud Practitioner. I guess that's the level that they're aiming for this one. Just to give you really basic generative AI, I assume completely in the realm of how AWS does it with Bedrock and whatnot, right? And then AWS Certified Machine Learning Engineer Associate. That was a lot to say. And that's meant more at the solutions architect level, where you're supposed to already have some experience. Now, it's interesting they call it the Machine Learning Engineer Associate and not like AI Engineer Associate. So curious to see from a blueprint perspective what the difference is there, like why they specifically called it that instead of AI, or is it, what are the services really ultimately that they're going to target for that? But yeah, so two new certs from AWS, AI focused. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I've started to notice this AI versus ML buzzwords lately, if you will, like from a couple different vendors. And it is interesting to see. I don't know if this is just a play to kind of save themselves from overusing the word AI too much, or, to not call something AI when it's just machine learning. So it's interesting to see AWS doing this as well. And then also, this is the associate certification. So it makes you think that probably down the line, there's going to be a professional one as well. So it's not surprising they're coming out with certs. They have some, we've talked about this before, but I think they have some catch up to do in the AI race. So this is definitely a step in that direction for them.
Yeah, I don't, albeit I could probably find this out by diving into this a little bit further, but isn't there already an AWS certified machine learning specialty exam? So like, how does the machine learning engineer overlap with that? And this particular article did call out, so it says, together with the AWS certified data engineer associate and machine learning specialty certifications, AWS now offers multiple options for individuals to showcase some of today's most in-demand skills. Obviously that's just, kind of marketing speak, but it seems like there's so much overlap with this. So I don't know if that means that the machine learning specialty is, potentially going to get the axe or something. They've seemed to have been shuffling things around a bit and not, I wouldn't say pissing people off, but making people a little weary about leaning too hard into a specific certification on this track. So I wonder if that's going to happen here. Don't know.
Yeah, usually the reason that you would take a specialty exam and move it essentially to like a middle range exam is because you have a plan to create an expert version of it, and
Right.
and you want it to be more broadly applicable, like more people will go for it and stuff like that than to go straight at a specialty cert. So that's my guess is that that's their thinking on it as well.
Maybe this means we'll get a advanced networking associate and professional
very
later on.
Yeah, very unlikely, but okay. First, they'd have to actually appreciate networking to that degree, and I don't think anybody but us does.
A girl can dream, you know.
All right. Let's see. So we have a reinforced roll up, if you will, from Tech Target, pointing out that AWS touts its security culture and AI protections at Reinforce. So I was not at Reinforce, so I don't know if this is just what this particular person was paying attention to, or if this really was the central wording, if you will, at Reinforce. But there was a lot of jabs at Microsoft, is what this article was saying about kind of the Microsoft culture of dealing with
all over.
Yeah, really just all over it, right? The Microsoft culture, if you will, of escalations and kind of not being clear and concise about their culture, like security culture and stuff. Another part of the article mentions that AWS added a bunch of new security features to the identity access management. There's a lot in here, again, about AI, but it's all very generic, to be honest. Again, Amazon really wants, or AWS, should I say, really wants to be seen as a leader in the AI race. So pretty much any opportunity they have to talk about AI, it seems like they're talking about AI, and for what that's worth. But yeah, I mean, the article is pretty good. I'm definitely take a look at it. But yeah, besides like this idea of security culture and AI, I didn't hear anything else really coming out of Reinforce. Actually, Reinforce was pretty quiet.
Yeah, this article, it's a little interesting. A lot of it is from the AWS CISO, Chris Betts. I'm looking at it right now, and he's kind of emphasizing how, we've had a really strong security culture for a long period of time, but I don't know. I just feel like in the past, a lot of people have talked about how you have like that shared security and responsibility model, and that hasn't really been the message from them in the past. Like they mentioned these things called security guardians, which it sounds like are people that are embedded into each service team. Have you guys ever heard of this? I've never heard that term before this article. So
not once.
I don't know. It sounds like this is a CISO saying what he's supposed to say. And then like Tim said, of course, they're talking about how, with all the rush to new AI stuff, they have to make sure that data is secure because that's what everybody wants. So to me, it's like, the CISO saying exactly what he should be saying.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of these security guardians is it's basically like with their product development, right? That basically once they go through everything, it's just sent through these security guardians. I guess they would be putting a stamp of approval on things that they're adopting best practices and things like that. So, I think they align it to the whole shift left mentality type thing, right? So it makes sense. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Tim. It was like, I think we were looking through the announcements from Reinforce to try to put something into the news, and a lot of it really wasn't even enough to cover, really. So nope. I think we have one more article after this that Tim's going to talk about that we thought was somewhat interesting, but I will tell you that once you hear what it is, you might be like, "Oh, that's the most interesting thing you got out of Reinforce." But yeah, kind of on the same page with you guys.
Real quick, you did bring up a good point. The CISO pointing out like the protections for data, for AI and stuff. This actually brings to mind something we've talked about once or twice, which was, the CSPs want to be leaders in the AI race, and to some degree, I'm sure they will be. But the biggest blocker for them has got to be the idea that customers are afraid to give their data to essentially what could be considered either in worst case the competition, and in best case a third party that they have to trust with all because I mean the data, the model's only as good as the data in it, right? So who was it? Was it you, Chris, or somebody we were talking about? Somebody putting like their whole code base into Copilot or something like this, right?
Yeah.
Like it's nuts, right? Like it's absolutely insane. So I think this wording about AI and data security is not random, right? There's nothing random about it.
No, and we don't have anything talking about this in the news, but this just reminded me of I think it's Adobe just got a bunch of flack in the last week or two because they've changed their licensing terms to basically anything you create with our product we can use for AI. Like what?
Yep.
So it's just stuff like that. If people are going to have a hard time trusting Adobe with these things, just imagine someone like AWS or GCP or Azure. Like it's going to be, we've got a long road ahead.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, and one more AWS article, and it's barely an article, honestly, and it's from AWS. It's on the AWS blog. Some of you will probably be like, "Wait, they weren't doing this already?" When I say this, but so AWS introduced a new functionality for AWS GuardDuty, and GuardDuty is kind of like their threat detection product. It's actually, I think it's actually Proofpoint under the covers. Actually, it's Proofpoint that they've branded as AWS GuardDog. So GuardDog has been there for a while on the Elastic Block Store, so EBS volumes, and like so if it's attached to an EC2 instance, you have malware protection. GuardDuty now is available, not available. I think it's actually on by default now in for S3 for the simple storage service. So when people are uploading files to the S3 buckets, GuardDuty is going to look at those files and try to figure out if they're malware. So if if you host a website or host some kind of thing where you want people to upload files to you, for example, this is now a service that AWS is providing where GuardDuty will scan those files for you for malware. So like I said, a lot of us are probably like scratching our heads like, what, that didn't already exist? But like, no, this is a new feature. So I don't know what you guys have to say. Probably not a lot to say about that one.
No, not a lot to say, but I think was that a Freudian slip there that you had where you just called it Guard Dog?
Guard Dog.
That's
did I say Guard Dog?
That's a way cooler name. I like
Guard Dog. I like Guard
Dog. That's my biggest takeaway from this article is I think they should rebrand it to what you just said because
Guard Dog.
That's way cooler. Yeah,
I agree, and yeah, I have nothing else to add. That's
okay. All right, Alex, I will hand this over to you. I think you got a couple to cover for us as well.
Yep. So we got a couple. Cisco Live, happened pretty recently. Tim was actually there. There, unfortunately, was not a whole lot of anything around like cloud announcements. So we're kind of trying to find stuff that we can cover, kind of related to our show here. And one that pops out is, of course, this really should have just been Cisco Live AI, right? Because it was a lot of AI announcements.
There was a lot, dude.
Yeah, and that's what these are really. So first one, Cisco Blogs. It's an article about Cisco helps build AI workforce with new skills certification. The title is a little misleading here. And I only found this after I heard some people talking about this on Twitter or X. It's a CCDE AI infrastructure. And at first I was like, is this a brand new CCDE? But after doing some research, it's like an elective, I think they call it, right? I don't know much about the CCDE, but it's more of like a focus, like a major, like a minor you can pick as you go through the CCDE, if you will. So I don't know. Pete Lumbus had a lot of good points on this that I saw. Like basically, is this really necessary? Like our AI infrastructure is so custom that you need a whole dedicated section of the CCDE just to talk about it. And I don't know. I think a lot of people agreed with him. I didn't really see many opposing points of how it's so different that you do need something. So I don't know what I think about this. What do you guys have any thoughts here?
I was gonna say I like how you mentioned it, like a minor in AI. Like you're gonna say like, oh, I got my CCDE with a minor in
AI infrastructure. There you go.
There you go. I was right there with you when I saw this announcement. I was like, holy shit! Like they really already revamped the entire CCDE to be about AI. Like that is absolutely nuts. But yeah, since we know it's kind of a specialization. I mean, that's the thing is like I understand that it's kind of weird that it's already in there. Usually these things take a lot more care and feeding before they make it to the actual certification track. But if we're at this stage where it's kind of like pick your own specialization, I can't be too perturbed with it because, people just don't fucking pick it, pick the other shit that makes more sense, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think I've ever seen anything get into the certification track this fast, especially for something like the CCDE, which we actually thought was maybe getting sunset at some point. I think we've all, Tim and I years ago, like contemplated going for it. And then we were like, actually, I don't, it was around Certpocalypse whenever that happened. What was that? 2019?
2019. Yep.
Yeah. We all were like, actually they're probably going to kick the bucket on this thing. So we're just going to not do it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'd be really, really keen to hear from somebody who takes it. I'm sure it's not going to be out for a little bit, but yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So when you take the DE, the practical exam or whatever, it's like all scenario based. So you have like a whole scenario that you work through, and you pick kind of your scenario, if you will. That's why they call it an elective. So like there's I forget what they are. I don't actually have the list in front of me, but this is basically just I wouldn't know how this is different than just like high performance computing, just in general. Like how is this a different selection than that?
Exactly.
Right? But yeah, but to say that Cisco Live was like entirely AI, all the keynotes, all the so many breakouts, so many announcements, so many new things. From a cloud perspective, they had AWS and GCP there, and that was it. Like they had booths in the World of Solutions, and they weren't really making any noise. So it was cool that they were there, though. But yeah, I was actually expected a lot more cloud there, and they were like, "Nope, get out of the way, cloud. We got to make room for AI." So yeah, so nothing else to say there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so on that same vein, we will talk about, I guess, a product, if you will, that was announced at Cisco Live. So another article, and this article is actually really good. It goes into a lot of detail about it, but they announced something called Nexus Hyperfabric. Hyperfabric, right? Not Hypershield like we've been talking about with the eBPF security solution, but Hyperfabric this time.
Everything is now hyper.
Oh man. So this is they're calling it a new simplified data center infrastructure solution with NVIDIA for generative AI. So it's essentially, they've partnered up with NVIDIA. Let me see. So there's new switches, Cisco 6000 series switches. They run on Silicon One, and there's like NVIDIA Bluefield DPUs. There's GPUs in this thing. Like it's a whole, my understanding is these are like greenfield deployments, right? So think of how ACI kind of controls a data center fabric. This is kind of similar, but it's controlling your AI, like on-prem AI data center, if you will. What's weird to me is this is controlled by Nexus Dashboard, and Nexus Dashboard already controls, you can have like VXLAN fabrics, leaf-spine fabrics within NXOS. You can control ACI with it. And now they've added this third hyperfabric. Someone in the A1 Discord was mentioning, does this mean, should we start watching out for ACI being sunset? And I think that's something to seriously think about because, as much as I used to love ACI, I really see more and more people migrating away from it. And if this is also controlled by Nexus Dashboard, I just wonder how long something like ACI has left to live. What do you guys think here?
I'm not an ACI person. Like I never really got into it. I think I've mentioned several times on the show though that I feel like the Cisco implementation of ACI was definitely geared towards network engineers and less towards the people running the applications, which is probably what it needed to be because it was application centric infrastructure. And it never really made that leap. Or anybody who turned on ACI mode, or it's not network mode. I forget what the ACI mode is. Application mode, is that what it's called?
Yeah, they just network centric mode or application.
That's right, app centric mode. That was what it was. Like nobody had a good story when that happened when they did that, right? I'm not aware
except
of anyone.
Dan.
Except Dan.
Howdy Packet is the only one.
Dan is the one person who figured it out, apparently. But yeah, no, I've heard the same, that a lot of customers are basically like, you know what, ACI is too complicated. It's not actually helping. We're just going to run VXLAN fabrics with like EVPN as the control plane or something and be good. Right. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like just to harp back to ACI real quick. I feel like everyone you talk to that has an ACI environment, they know the day that they swapped from network centric to app centric, and it's either a horror story. I mean, let's be honest, it's mostly a horror story, or people they'll be like, "Oh, we tried it and it didn't work, so we reverted all back. Now it's network centric." But yeah,
and now our fabric is all over, like half app centric, half network centric. Yeah.
Right. So I think it was just too hard. But I mean, we don't need to use this to just beat up on ACI. But I do think it's funny now that you mentioned that, like all this being controlled through the Nexus dashboard. Do you think that's just a coincidence that the latest Rev Up to Recert program was all based around the Nexus dashboard? I don't know.
I'm sure it was not at all. Yeah.
I'll tell you, as someone that's trying to get my CE credits and has not touched a Nexus switch in probably close to 6 years, it's a beast. They have this very long course, so I don't know if it's going to lead me to Hyperfabric, but we'll see. Tim's going to be a Hyperfabric expert in the coming months.
I'm waiting for all the other Hyper products. I want to get all the Hyper products out, and then like do some kind of Hyper Voltron shit where you hyper them all together.
Tim is going to be the Ritalin to the hyperness around Cisco. He'll tone it all down. Everyone's just everyone's a little bit too much, tone it down a little bit.
I mean, how long till it's Hyperfabric with Hypershield, right? There's going to be some kind of weird product that combines these two things.
Or like Spaceballs, we're all going to be going ludicrous speed or something like that.
It's kind of funny. I got to bring this up real quick because this will go into the next article. Our recent episode we did, as you're listening to this last week, with John Capobianco. I don't think he actually knew like what was happening inside of Cisco with these products when he talked about it, but he brought up how there were like CVDs that were talking about on-prem AI networks, and then like 2 weeks later, all this stuff got announced. And it's just funny. Like he was talking about it. So it's so fresh top of mind that it's funny to see this come out and know that there are CVDs out there for this exact thing. And it's not just CVDs. There's like the Cisco ones, but also NVIDIA has their own, whatever they call them, like their own equivalent of the CVDs for AI data centers as well. So funny to see. But so I bring up John because he also brought up this thing called Cisco Outshift. And I had never heard of this before. So I went and looked it up. And I know when I sent you guys this link in Discord, Tim, you were like, I just saw this at Cisco Live. So It was funny. Again, another weird coincidence, right? We have a link to to their site, but Outshift is essentially like an incubation. What do they call it?
Just an incubation center, isn't it?
Yeah, we are Cisco's incubation engine, right? So I kind of think of this like Google has like their the moonshot factory that they call it. This is just for like projects that Cisco kind of wants to try like something crazy out of the box. And then like, instead of like spin outs, right? That's what they called them in the past, I think, where they'd have spin outs that would build up a new company and then they'd acquire them and bring them right back in. This is just like a new incubation engine for Cisco. You guys have anything to add here? I don't know if you've looked into this too much.
Yeah. And it's a question I used to ask when I worked at Cisco all the time was like, how do we solve the innovator's dilemma? And the innovator's dilemma is, of course, is a book that you can find on print or audiobook, but it basically says, for all these giant companies that are so slow moving, that have all their revenue tied up in products they already sell, who have to take care of their customers and can't spend a dime. It doesn't make any financial sense for them to spend a dime on innovation anymore. Like, how do they do it? And the answer in the book was pretty much the same as what we've got Cisco doing and Google doing, which is you got to spin this out, take it out from underneath the skirts of the big corporation, out from underneath the financial sense stuff that, all of that, and then try it, to be agile and just get it out from under the company and see how it works. So,
yeah, I mean, it's to your point, Tim. It's like they want these things to be able to move fast. They want new technology to be kind of sprung up and progress forward in the manner of a startup, essentially, right? They want it to have that startup mentality. And for those of you out there that have worked in a startup, it's very chaotic. It is very fast moving. You're doing a lot of pivoting. There's not a lot of like hard lines drawn in the sand on anything. Like everyone's kind of doing everything type thing. But that makes me wonder if obviously the behavior of spinning things out, letting them run on their own, and then just kind of bringing back buying them out, basically bringing them back under the Cisco umbrella. I wonder how this affects that. Does it affect the agility of these incubation units to run? Like if it's technically still part of Cisco, like are they going to be restricted to a lot of the compliance and kind of day-to-day operations of how Cisco does things? I don't know. I'd be curious to learn more about that. But yeah, I mean, it's probably a way to speed up this process rather than letting people kind of leave and come back under the terms of acquisition, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope that they spin them back in, right, when they've like reached a certain point of maturity, and they're not just, as soon as some innovation happens, they just drag them in and stop all that progress that they were making, right? The move fast and break things kind of mentality.
Yeah.
The part they haven't fixed and haven't solved, and I'm not sure who has, honestly, is when you pull it out, create something, and then bring it back in, how do you integrate it with the products you already have? How do you make it part of the portfolio without being another dashboard? And that's the part I think that's still Cisco is struggling with.
You just throw it into Nexus dashboard. Yeah. All right. Chris, you want to take us away with the last couple articles?
Sure. So we'll try to breeze through these a little bit. So we have an article here from CRN about Fortinet. They announced, I believe it was last Monday, that they are reaching an agreement to acquire cloud security unicorn, as they've been tokenized as Lacework. So they're working on integrating capabilities from Lacework's CNAP. And for those of you like myself that don't know what a CNAP is, much like I don't, that is a cloud native application protection platform, kind of contributing to Fortinet's unified SASE offering across the board. So quote from Fortinet was like, this was one of the most comprehensive full stack AI driven cloud security platforms available from a single vendor, being Lacework. So they've obviously brought them in under their umbrella. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about Lacework. I know they've been causing waves in certain aspects, and I've heard about them here and there. So this is, it's about as exciting as an AI driven acquisition can be in the security space. I think they said it's still unclear whether or not the Lacework CEO is actually going to move over to Fortinet. So we'll see if that comes to light, but cool. A good move for Fortinet, I'm sure. Fortinet is not one of these companies that I've kept in the forefront of my mind thinking about integrated AI security in that regard. So I'm sure this is gonna be a bit of a springboard to get them in that category. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, same as you. I would not have. I have not been paying much attention to Fortinet myself either. Lacework, though, they had already raised $1.8 billion, so they're definitely onto something. I think they said the valuation was just over $8 billion. So there were no financial terms disclosed. Maybe we'll find that out later. But I didn't even realize Fortinet had the ability to spend that much on something like this so quickly. So It's just another domino in all these insane acquisitions we keep seeing over the last year.
What I find interesting about the article is that it mentions that the valuation was like $8 billion in 2021, but then right below it says Wiz had been in talks with them to acquire them for like a fraction of that number. So I kind of wonder if Lacework is still what their valuation is today. Like is that why Fortinet scooped them up? Was this a fire sale, or did Fortinet actually have I had been shopping for a while for something like this and wanting to add their portfolio? Sometimes there are companies that acquire other companies just because it's too cheap not to. Like, it's just like, this is the lunch money leaving it on the ground. And then there's ones where they actually think hey, we've got a huge hole in our portfolio. Let's go find the right company to pull in. And I kind of wonder, based on how this article is written, kind of which one this is, and maybe we'll never find out.
Seems like all of them.
Yeah, right. All right. Next up, we have a press release directly from Oracle, mentioning that the OpenAI has selected Oracle or OCI to extend the Microsoft Azure AI platform. So, pretty short press release, but I think the gist of it is it's obvious that Azure is running out of capacity when it comes to things
not
like
again.
Not again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I forgot. But this is a trend, right? We've seen this coming for some time, especially with all the AI integration and things like that. There's only so many GPUs out there right now, and they can't print them fast enough to get them into the market. But I mean, at the end of the day, OCI, probably good to have Microsoft. I don't know who's technically the customer in this scenario. Is it Microsoft or is it OpenAI? Either one, not bad to have them in your back pocket. So I'm sure OCI is out there number one, updating all their customer slides to include OpenAI and Microsoft as one of their primary customers. That would be the first thing I did. So, capacity. We're reaching the time where capacity is becoming a big problem for even some of these CSPs, and they're the ones that get pretty much first access to all the GPUs from NVIDIA. So it's kind of concerning, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what OCI. It's interesting that OCI made a press release about this, because if you think about it, it almost sounds like a backroom deal, right? Like where OpenAI would be like, look, we just need your capacity. We're not looking to be OCI customers and use the OCI platform. We just want your back end capacity. So I wonder if part of the deal to get the capacity involved this press, this public press release saying, hey, OCI's got capacity for AI workloads. Come on over, right? So, it seems it's a weird press release, because I can't remember the last time you essentially have one CSP or one company as huge as Microsoft. OpenAI, I know, but let's just say it's Microsoft really putting this money out, to a competitor, essentially saying we need your shit.
Yeah, and kind of to both your points, Chris, you mentioned who's the customer. I mean, I think Microsoft owns 40-something% of OpenAI. So, read into that as you will.
100%. All right, and lastly, to round this out, I'll say we have kind of two articles, two kind of think pieces that are kind of discussing the same thing. So we have one from fiercenetwork.com and then another from I believe it is securitybrief.com.au. So a little Australia representation on the pod here today. But just really talking about, a lot of the AI integration and whether the enterprise networks are ready for this type of adoption of AI. So the one specifically from Fierce Network talks about a study that was put together from a company called Experio, I believe is how you pronounce it, found that 69% of businesses are preparing to take on AI or already using it at scale. So I feel like that's pretty obvious, but I think that anyone probably knows that. But they get into a lot of details about percentages about who's ready for that, as far as where network security sits, where multi-cloud networking and connectivity sits, and this kind of talk about the rise of this network platform that needs to exist to support the AI infrastructure along the way. There's a lot of details and there's a lot of numbers about percentages relating to economy and inflation and things like that. So I don't think we want to get too deep into that, but curious to get your all's thoughts. How do you feel? I mean, I feel like we've been preaching this already, that we saw this coming, but curious to hear if you guys have any other tidbits to offer.
No, yeah, I mean, this isn't surprising. Like you said, these aren't even the first articles we've kind of seen along these lines, but more and more people are starting to talk about it. That AI is just blowing up everywhere, and as we talk about often, like for the people that don't want to hand over their data to CSPs or whoever else is like providing some kind of AI cloud, they have to start thinking about how to do it in house. And whether they want to or not, a lot of these companies feel like they have to do something with AI, and maybe their only option is to do it on-prem. So it's good to have someone talking about it, at least some of the things that people should worry about, like this network platform or data sovereignty or latency or how to interconnect your clusters, right? All these things are important. So I guess it's good to see it out getting into the mind share of everyone.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, this is nothing new. It's just validation. These links are just validation of something we've been talking about. We knew it was coming, and so now here come along the people who are not networking people saying, "Oh, actually, we really need a network for this AI data center that we're building for these AI workloads." So high capacity, high performance computing, high capacity, high performance networking. We knew over a year ago when we talked to Peter Jones about this. And I remember very well when we were asking him, what do you think any of these networks are going to look like? I forgot what his exact words were, but he was like, "Oh, we're just going to like make some shit up then." Cause like at that time, nobody really even understood what the AI was going to, in what form such a model might look. Right. So now we're actually starting to see some solidifying of it. And I think a lot of companies are finding out that, first of all, they don't have the gear for it at all. And, and like you said, they're feeling the pressure, like, somebody above them, some C-suite person heard the word AI and decided that they have to do it too. So
that's a good point. Real quick, Tim, like, they don't have the gear. I think I've tried to say this a couple of times, but like compute is the new currency, right? And there's not, like, a lot of these companies don't have the money to buy such high performing or massive clusters that they actually need. And I think a lot of businesses don't realize just how much compute it takes to do some of the things that they're seeing these larger companies do. And that's just causing even more consternation, right? Between, oh gosh, do I go to the cloud and then I lose data sovereignty or whatever else? And I think that just all of it just lends itself to the same conversation over, like a cyclical conversation over and over again. So,
once again, the cloud ends up offering the agility, but at a cost, if you will.
Yep. I mean, it's kind of what you said, Alex. Like, compute is the currency, but we're forgetting about some of the basic. I think you called this out when we were talking about the CCDE thing. Like, how is this just any different from high performance computing? It's just a lot of data going through a network at a specific point in time, and now it's almost like it's kind of just the same shit over and over again, right? Like, people don't want to pay to put, maybe they don't want to pay to deploy this huge, VMware stack or something on-prem anymore. So they're going to start doing it in the cloud. They're going to do Kubernetes to make it, decoupled and things like that, microservices. It's all buzzwords like coming to fruition, right? So it's, and I think I do like seeing call outs for things like latency, and network congestion, specifically, because I feel like that's something that's typically overlooked, because especially a lot of this is going into the cloud, but we're talking about a lot of AI integrations. It seems like the simplest one out of the box is a chatbot for people to interact with on an application scale, right? And that's direct interaction with users on a regular basis, and latency matters a lot in those situations. It can be critical to the user experience. So it's good to see that called out, I guess. But I mean, like you said, guys, it's pretty much, I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to know the meme I'm referencing, but it's like the manifestation of that meme where the kid's just like, does anyone know if we have to reap what we sow tomorrow? I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes or something. But that was the first thing I thought of. But yeah, that's all I got. So let's I guess I'll toss it back to you, Alex. You can take us home.
Yep. And I got to say one last thing about this real quick. So I am actually optimistic that maybe this will finally bring about the edge computing paradigm and like IoT, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of that latency piece, that maybe that will finally be the push that while this cycle starts over again and then it never kind of made it to the edge, maybe this time it will actually, because there's actually a legitimate reason to push it out there. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Buy stock in AWS Outpost.
I don't know if that's the answer.
I'm just kidding.
The leader in AI, right?
The more, right.
All right, guys. So we'll wrap it up here. I think that covers it, right? We're going to continue to talk about AI every week, it seems like. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you in another 2 weeks.
And download that new Fortnite update.
Yeah.
New season.
There you go. Hi, everyone. It's Alex, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcatcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all of our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables2Clouds. You can also visit our website for all of the show notes at cablestoclouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.